This is a presentation of WCTV, all volunteer community access television from the Township of Washington.
Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Exit 168 WCTV, the all-volunteer community access television group from the Township of Washington. And tonight we have a very, very good show here. We're going to talk to three men here. We're going to discuss something that's very, very important to our health and well-being. And as you see, as Fred pulls back, we have a dummy, no replica of anything that I look like, and we have something here called the Lifeline ARM. And when we're finished tonight, you're going to see how this is going to save thousands and thousands of lives, not only in the Bergen County, maybe throughout the United States. So let me do the introduction of our guest tonight, and then we'll talk about this new equipment here that's going to be so revolutionary. To my left here is Eugene Greco from the Ambulance Corps, Washington Township. Councilman Tom Sears is to his left, and Bob Stickel is the man in charge of the idea here. We're going to talk about the ARM. So, Councilman Sears, we'll start with you. Basically, what we have here is I'm going to call it a piece of equipment, for a better word, that is going to revolutionize cardiac compression and save thousands of lives. How did you get involved with the ARM?
Actually, it started at a Ambulance Corps dinner when I was talking to some of the Ambulance Corps people, and we were talking about new technology that was coming out. And as they were describing this machine, it really perked my interest on what a terrific tool it would be for saving lives. So as I started Googling about the machine, and I called Bob over here, gave me more information on the growth of this technology, on how the compressions that people normally do by their hand compared to what this machine does automatically. There's no word that this thing will not save lives. And I'm so overwhelmed by the machine, I decided that we need it for our Ambulance Corps. They need it. My goal is to get 2 or 3 to put it in the emergency services vehicles. But as Eugene will explain, I can't do all the compressions that this machine could do. This gives a steady compression. Definitely is going to save lives, and definitely I want the whole community behind us getting this machine for our Ambulance Corps.
Eugene, EMS, how long have you been on the EMS? How many years you been?
About 20 years.
So 20 years. Now, prior to this machine coming online, if God forbid I came down and I had symptoms that looked like I was in cardiac arrest, and the police came and they called you, what would the first thing you do prior to this machine for me?
We do an assessment, make sure that you were having a heart attack, and then we would start CPR, and which is chest compressions and breathing. And it has since progressed that it's gotten to the point now that doing CPR as a one-man or a two-man crew, it just becomes very, very tired, very, very fatigued, very, very tiresome. This machine is very accurate and gives you the right depth on your compressions, the right number of compressions. As you'll see later, this particular model beeps and lets you know when to give the breaths, okay, and then it starts up again. It's very accurate machine, and I have not used it because we don't have the machine, but we've been on calls where all the paramedic units have another model of this.
So you've seen this in action?
Yes, a number of times.
A number of times you've
Yes.
seen it, and it's worked very well.
Very well. And one of the most important part of it is that a lot of houses the hallways are small, the bedrooms are small. You can't get in there and do the way we used to do is lay the person out on a board and do the chest compressions. But it's kind of difficult to be doing compressions on somebody if you got to turn the board and move the board. This hooks up to it, stays on there, and even when you have the person moving them, it's still doing compressions.
And doing it the old way before this, you're telling me you have to get into an apartment or a house and you got to move. That's all time consuming.
Very
And
much so.
time is at an essence when someone is coming down with a heart attack. You've got to get the help to them as quickly as possible. Seconds mean
Exactly.
lives, correct?
Yes, correct.
Now you have some statistics that come along with this that you were
Yeah,
talking about to me before the show?
Yes, according to the American Heart Association, there was over 350,000 cardiac arrests that occurred outside the hospital in 2013. But what's even more surprising and very frightening about the whole thing is that the survival rate was less than 9% once they had the heart attack before the CPR. Many people in town have gone to the CPR course and AED at the library. I'm sorry, at the library, and like I said, is that the CPR in itself is very fatiguing. Usually, it takes when we have a call. Let's put it this way: when we had a call, if it is a CPR, we ride with a two-man crew. We put out another tone for extra help, and 3 or 4 more people show up to help.
So sometimes you'd have 4 people there working.
Yep.
And then you also have, I also noticed that an ambulance or another truck will follow you from, it says Hackensack, I guess I don't even know what.
That's the paramedics.
The paramedics, they would come also. So you'd have a lot of people there working.
Yeah, and first on the scene are the police, so there's usually two policemen there. Then we show up, then the paramedics show up, and then we call for extra help. So there's a lot of people involved
Walking around.
trying to do a CPR call.
All right, Bob, we'll get down to the nitty-gritty with you. The name of this is called ARM, which stands for?
Automatic resuscitation machine.
And talk a little about, this has been okay by the FDA?
Yes, they got FDA clearance in January. And like Eugene said, the issue here is this is not really changing what we call the chain of survival. We still want early 911, early CPR, early defibrillation. Still, the key to survival is to defibrillate someone with the defibrillator, which we have in our police cars, on our ambulances in town. But in some instances, defibrillations don't work. That could be due to downtime. They may not be in ventricular fibrillation. So then it's important to continue CPR. What we're doing with CPR is trying to keep the oxygen going to the brain. So if we can't defibrillate them and get a normal rhythm back, we want to be doing effective CPR. So when a paramedic show up and start drug therapy, that will stimulate the heart, hopefully to put them in ventricular fibrillation. They'll be able to convert their rhythm with the defibrillator. Like Eugene said, statistically, we know after 2 to 3 minutes, most people cannot do effective CPR. In an adult, we have to compress the chest at least 2 inches and at a rate of more than 100 times per minute. So that becomes very fatigued. So what this device is designed for is when we cannot do effective manual CPR because we have either a long transport time, which is not so much an issue here in Washington Township because we have a hospital close by, but you get up into Sussex County, transport times could be 20 minutes. Other parts of the country can be 45 minutes or an hour. So that's areas where this is caught on for that. A lot of emergency rooms are using this too because it frees up the paramedics, it frees up the EMT to be doing other things.
Now, towns and schools, getting into this? Are they buying this? Is this, is it starting to move
This type
along?
of device is not like an AED where we can train a layperson. At this point, the FDA has approved these units for use by trained first responders. So that would be like a police officer, EMT, paramedic, emergency room personnel, firefighter. So it's on that level. You know, someday we may see these in schools, but right now it's basically designed for the first responders.
Now, you with your company, LifeSavers,
Correct.
Inc., you go out and you show this to different organizations, police, fire, EMS, schools. You've been doing that now?
Yeah, we've shown it at 2 large trade shows. We were in Baltimore last week. It's been very well received. People like the design. The Defibtech engineers really looked at everything on the market. This has been in development for several years now.
How did they develop this? I'm always interested how these geniuses think about these things. How did they develop this?
You know, it's interesting. Everybody looks at this. About 40 years ago, there was a device on the market that did similar to this, but it weighed about 40 pounds. It was not. It kind of went by the wayside. Now, with the change in technology and software, we're starting to see it come back. This whole device here weighs 15 pounds, so it's the lightest device on the market, which is important. You know, here in a town like Washington Township, you know, you probably have the highest buildings 2 stories, but in a lot of places you may have 4 or 5 story walk-ups, so that's important for EMS personnel. The technology with plastic, they can design something now in plastic that this plastic is actually stronger than steel, which the early types of devices that weighed 40 pounds were made out of. So they've really looked at stuff and made it easier.
Any feedback from the medical people, the doctors,
Well, actually,
cardiologists? things
sure.
like that?
Actually, Defibtech, their chief executive officer is a cardiothoracic surgeon. So he's, you know, this is where these ideas come out of, and the engineers look to build it. But sure, it's an effective way. You know, and we're not even just not doing effective CPR, but in a lot of instances, the cost of injuries in a large system where people are doing CPR. You know, Eugene will probably tell you if they're working on someone from the time they're dispatched, they get them into an emergency room, it could be a half hour because the paramedic's job is to try to resuscitate in the field before you move. Because once you start moving a patient, it's hard to do CPR. It's in a lot of instances can be unsafe to do CPR in the back of an ambulance because now you have personnel that are not seat belted in. So if there's a motor vehicle accident, it can end up being fatal for the crew. So this allows a safer environment for the crew.
There you go. Tom?
Yeah, Bob, correct me if I'm right. The battery on this lasts an hour.
Yeah, the battery, we have the longest in the industry. It's an hour to an hour and 15 minutes.
And also what I also like about this unit is at the end of the battery cycle, if they're transporting, they can plug this into a cigarette lighter and plug it into here to keep this thing running. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's a little bit, in an ambulance we have what we call an inverter. So
Right.
you're actually taking, you know, your 12 volt power in the ambulance and you're putting it to 110. So you would plug this in, the adapter would look like a 3-prong, but basically the same
Right.
thing.
So this could run in an ambulance, could just run forever until you get a person to the hospital. Can you show us and explain? Let's say we'll take this off, and let's say Oscar here got a heart attack. Poor
Well,
Oscar.
basically this
And
device
and
is-
the EMS would come. You could stand up and help him too if you want.
Is three position,
I think you'll be able
three
to stand.
pieces.
Yeah, we got you.
So
Oh, we
basically,
lost you. Okay.
basically you have a backboard here, so
Right.
you would be rolling the patient. But just to do it here on the table, you line up the patient there. Okay. Meanwhile, while we're doing this, you'd have a crew member doing CPR. What's nice about this device, you'll see how easy I line it up, just snaps into place. The compression tool, we're the only device where this is actually separate. Most of the devices, you have the weight up here. This is the heaviest part of the whole thing. So this allows you to line up the patient. If you still wanted to render care, you can have this open while they're still rendering care and actually have it hooked onto one side. Oops. So you'd have it
Like
on
that.
one side.
Okay.
When they manufactured, they made it simple. This goes in either way. So in an emergency, no matter what side you're working on, you can put it in either way. There's no right or wrong. Same with our battery. It can go in either way. Upside down, right side, there's no wrong way. So in an emergency, there's no chance of making a mistake.
Right.
Basically, just hold down the on button. It'll queue up, and you're going to see we're going to lower this. And as we lower it, you'll see how it adjusts it to the right depth of the chest. So the brains of this, the computer in here, the chips, will adjust that because everybody's chest is going to be a little different. Then once that's in place, we'll just press the button, and now it's going to deliver at a rate of 100 compressions a minute, and 2 inches the compression. So it'll deliver 30 compressions, and you'll hear a beep. Okay, that beeps to tell you we're coming on the 30th compression. It pauses so you can give your 2 ventilations. Okay. Once a breathing tube was inserted, we can go to just strictly compressions, and then you're going to ventilate every 8 seconds. Once the victim has a breathing tube, you don't need to pause for your compressions.
So with this compression here, what it's doing here, for large majority of people who suffer a heart attack, this is a lifesaver.
Yes. You got to look, you see
No
how,
doubt in my mind, it's not a lifesaver. No.
you'll see how hard that's compressing. Just picture yourself having to compress a chest at that rate and that depth.
You get tired real fast.
Get tired real fast.
Yeah, I'm sure you're doing this, you're knocking out. This thing can just keep going.
Just keep
and
going,
that'll
yeah.
get the blood flowing until you get either the paramedics come or you get Oscar to a hospital
Right.
where they can then do what they have to do there, right?
Yeah.
With them. Now, Tom, what you're doing now, what the town is doing, the 3 of you are doing, along with other people that are involved here, you're trying to get
We're trying to raise the money
Right.
to buy, right now, 2 of these.
Chudies.
You know, my goal is to have all 3 emergency services maybe have it, but I definitely want to get to have 2 of these. One right away. This is going to save lives. We're going to be sending letters out to some of the businesses in town. There's going to be on our website. If the residents would like to contribute, this is something different than the normal ambulance corps fundraiser letter. This is going to be part of the ambulance corps, but we're going to call it the health arm or heart fundraise for the machine. So we want to keep it 2 separate different fundraisers, because the ambulance corps has their own fundraiser. This is strictly to get this machine. So it's also going to be in the library. Checks can be sent to the library and sent to the ambulance corps. We'll post the addresses for both. But I know the community is going to be behind this, because when you see this machine, you know it's going to save lives.
Yeah.
And I'm just overwhelmed by, I've already received calls just talking about it to the Knights. They're involved. Other people have already said they're willing to donate and help out. So once we get this thing going real soon, I'd like to have one, be first one in the valley to have one of these machines.
It's good to make that donation, because God forbid this may come and save your life and a
never
loved
know.
one's life. And
Yes.
you know what?
Never know.
There's not enough money. You pay whatever you want to save your loved one. May I ask what the price for something like this would go?
The list price on this is $13,900.
So we're looking at 14,000, and you want to get 2 of them at least.
We're looking for 2 right now.
So and
But if we get enough for 1, we're going to get 1 right away.
you're going to get 1 right away,
Yeah.
and then now, let's say people are watching the show and they want to send a check or they want to donate and they think it's a great idea. Where can they send the checks to?
The first check, or it could be sent to the ambulance corps at 354 Hudson Avenue. You would make out the check to the Washington Township Volunteer Ambulance Corps, Heart Safety, so they know that this money is going to that. You can also contribute to our library. Laura is going to have a full stand down there, and those checks can be sent to 144 Woodfield Avenue, again addressed to the Washington Township Volunteer Ambulance Corps, Heart Safety. And I know this town's going to be behind this. We're going to be the first one in the valley to have this. And also, just to let you know, our ambulance corps also covers Westwood, Hillsdale, and so keep in mind that this machine's going to be used for those people also.
And we're going to be the first one in the valley to have the
Right
arm?
now, my goal is to be the first one in the valley
To be
to
the
have
first
this
one.
machine.
And then ultimately you want it, if you can have 3, best case scenario, you want to give it to the police,
I
fire?
would like to have the police department to have one, and then the fire department to be eventually trained in having one of these machines also.
Would it be advantageous for down the road schools to get this?
It would be, but
take them on football fields?
I think it's going to take time to get there. It's like any technology; the price will come down as there more and more units are out there. But at this point, I think it's something in the next few years you'll see police, EMS, fire departments carrying it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, how many times you read in the paper, kid playing soccer falls down, has cardiac arrest, basketball, whatever sport they are, even in the school, in the gym. So something like this, as the price comes down, down the road, people are going to say, we never had this. It's going to be almost like a staple where you have it in a school.
Hopefully.
I mean, how many times you get called or you hear people, EMS being called to a school that something's happened there, and we read tragically that some kid has passed away. Would that also help with if someone got electrocuted?
Again, this doesn't replace early defibrillation, and that's what we have big in schools now. We're putting defibrillators in schools. So anything that causes cardiac arrest, that causes your heart to stop functioning properly, not pumping blood, you're not breathing, you would apply this. Again, our first thing when EMS arrives or the police arrive is they're going to attempt defibrillation. What happens, you can use this with a defibrillator. So you'd put the pads on, attempt to defibrillate. If the person was non-shockable, then you can do 2 minutes worth. You do not have to remove this to use an AED. So you could have your AED pads on. If they're non-shockable, then you could continue to do your 2 minutes of CPR, and at the end of 2 minutes, you would let the AED reanalyze. Okay, so this is to be used in conjunction with defibrillation. Like you said, a lot of kids in sports, what they're suffering from is ventricular fibrillation, so the AED is very effective to resuscitate. And we saw that a year ago, last April, Pascagoula Valley, a track kid about 3 weeks ago in East Hanover, a 16-year-old, on a basketball court collapsed at a high school game. Again, both were successfully defibrillated. So this is not something that's going to replace defibrillation, but if EMS, paramedics in that case, cannot convert that rhythm, we want to keep the brain cells alive to get them into the emergency room, because without brain cells, there's nothing we can do in
So
an
this
emergency room.
gives you the best of both worlds then.
Exactly.
This gives you everything.
Gives you everything.
You're playing with 4 aces when you have this, and you're riding around if someone needs it. So it sounds great. Again, Tom, want to give the address to send any money,
Sure.
donations to be part of the...
Checks can go to the Washington Township Volunteer Ambulance Corps at 354 Hudson Avenue. Please make the check out to Heart Safety. And then checks can also be mailed to the library, and you also can drop funds off at the library, because that will also be a drop-off spot. And the library is at 144 Woodfield Road. And again, address it to the Washington Township Volunteer Ambulance Corps.
Heart safety.
Heart Safety.
Heart Safety,
Thank you.
you got to put that
Remember,
in.
Heart Safety.
So I want to thank you for coming up.
Thanks for
coming up
having us.
and
Thank you very much.
bringing our
Thank you for
people
having
here,
us.
and thank you for all the work you do with the EMS. I always say
problem.
it's nice to
Thank you.
have you there, but I never want to see you. You know what I mean, right? It's great to know that when we call
Yep.
you,
Yep.
you're there. But if I don't see you, no hard
No hard feelings.
But it's like the fire department and the police department. I like that you're there, but if I don't see you in my house, that's very good. Again, we hope everybody gets on board with this. This will save lives. You've got all the information. We'll try to put it up on our bulletin board. This tape will run at the library, so you go over to the library, you can see it again. And if you have any questions, you call the AMS. You could also call
Call me at
Councilman
anytime.
Sears. Bob's always around. Go to the bagel shop in the morning. You can talk to him there. He'll be glad to talk to you. And I'm always there. So you can talk to me too. So I want to thank you all
Thank
for
you,
coming
Larry.
in. You did a
Thank you.
wonderful
Thank you for
job.
having us.
And you're keeping this town very safe. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you next Friday night. We have a scout group coming in, and that should be a lot of fun when the young people come in. So for everyone here at Larry Fury and the volunteers of WCTV, saying thank you and good night.